Principles of finance, a la shmup. Depreciation versus amortization. Okay, people, 2 words, depreciation and amortization. Sing it with me. Actually, don't. All right, well, they're kissing cousins and both reflect the same notion. Things wear out, like my vocal cords. They must be replaced, not my vocal cords. Thank you. All right, key idea here, people. Depreciation is for tangible things, i.e. things you can touch, like a tractor smelting factory. Yeah, that thing's gonna wear out. Amortization is for intangible things, like patents and contracted for distribution relationships and FCC licenses. And here, we're going to talk about a broadcast license, which is intangible, right? So we're amortizing away its value. Okay, the big question that unites them is when. And, well, really, at what rate, right? When are we going to execute these things? Well, here's a little story to help illustrate. And we're rounding dates and times to keep the math as easily digestible as possible.
Illustrative example time.
In the 1980s, Cap Cities owned what is today the ABC television network, now owned by Disney. In those days, the law was such that the FCC would grant broadcast licenses for periods of time. A network would apply to renew that license, and as long as they, quote, did right, unquote, by the public, i.e. broadcast hurricane warnings aggressively, air public service messages against drunk driving, and sponsor charitable picnics with mucky mucks, well, then their licenses generally got renewed. The law changed a few times along the way, allowing for ownership concentration to increase, and that is, they allowed one station to buy another. Since a given target acquisition's broadcast license was a huge part of their total value, in an acquisition, well, that license's remaining duration had to be amortized away. Well, you can imagine that in a portfolio of a dozen station acquisitions, there ended up being a ton of broadcast license amortization fat that had to be amortized away, while some stations had only 2 years left on their license, so they were a small line item in the acquisition. Others had like 17 years left, and others had a dozen or more. All right, well, the result, Cap Cities had a lot of, quote, false, unquote, expenses. That is, in a given quarter, if they had $100 million of revenue and $50 million of expenses that were in cash, they'd have book attribution of another $40 million of amortization of, quote, costs, unquote, that had to be run through the income statement, meaning those costs were amortizing down the licenses. So instead of showing that they actually earned $1.70 a share in cash, well, their real income statement earnings showed like only a dime in earnings. And Wall Street hated this. The street had just come off a terrible bear market in the 70s, and investors were in no mood to pay much more than 15 times real earnings for a stock, no matter what the earnings quality looked like. Well, Cap Cities thought this was just lunacy, because on a free cash flow basis, well, they traded at about 6 times cash earnings. And that's for ABC, which was, at the time, one of the premier media properties in the entire free world. And maybe the unfree world, we're not sure what licenses go for in China. So the company was the first to really buy back its own stock, basically giving the middle finger to Wall Street. And oh, by the way, there was one investor who totally got the stupidity of the accounting rules behind Cap Cities. You've probably heard of him. Yeah, he became their largest shareholder.